COVID-19 is in our communities and the number of cases is on the rise. So it's essential that we each play our part in full by following all of the government guidance. Only by doing this can we keep our schools and businesses open. If you're young and healthy, you may feel the virus isn't a threat to you. But someone more vulnerable to coronavirus than you, perhaps someone closer to you than you realise, is depending on you to play your part in breaking the chain of transmission. So I'm asking everyone to do their bit. Stick to the rule of 6 for gatherings indoors or outdoors. Wash your hands thoroughly and regularly.
Okay, so we are now broadcasting live. Can I begin with apologies for absence, if there are any?
No, Chair, we've had no apologies for absence.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I'll just run through the attendance for the benefit of people watching, because obviously we can't all see each other. In addition to myself, I'm Councillor Richard Jackson. We have Councillor Roger Jackson, John Ogle, John Clark, Keith Girling, Tom Hollis, Eric Kerry, Diana Meal, Mike Pringle, Alan Rhodes and Gordon Wheeler with us in the meeting this afternoon. We've also got present the Service Director for Finance and Infrastructure, Nigel Stevenson, and the Service Director of Place and Communities, Derek Higton. We've got Group Manager Procurement, Kaj Gatara, and the clerk for us this afternoon is Pete Barker. Can I just remind members to keep their microphones muted when they're not speaking, and if at all possible to use the hand tool to indicate to speak. I am aware it doesn't always work. If it doesn't, please feel free to shout and interrupt or wave or put up a notice in front of your camera or something like that, and we'll try and get through to everybody. So can I take the minutes of the last meeting, the 20th of July meeting, as a correct record? I'll take silence as confirmation. Thank you. I've touched on apologies for absence already. There are none. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, I don't see any. So I'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the financial monitoring report for period 4. You've all had this clearly for some time to study. I'll ask Nigel if he's anything to add and if he'd like to introduce the report. Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. As I mentioned last time we met, unlike normal years' monitoring reports, this report sets out the in-year financial implications of the Council responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a consequence, colleagues will have to refer to both Table 1 on page 4 and Table 2 on page 5 to understand the overall financial implications of responding to COVID-19 and to other over or underspendings across the Council. Unfortunately, as we're still responding to the pandemic, the picture on our finances is more difficult to predict. The period 4 monitoring is, though, forecasting a small underspend of £184,000 for the current financial year. This is a slight movement from that predicted in period 3 and a vastly different picture to that set out when we reported the predicted outturn at the July committee. Then the situation saw an overspend of £15.8 million. But since then, additional financial support has been provided by government, a better understanding of the costs arising from COVID-19, and officers have been taking measures to control spend. Currently, the Council anticipates additional costs and reduction in income of £46.7 million as the impact of COVID-19, and Table 2 indicates that £4.6 million of this will be the anticipated shortfall in current government funding towards our costs. Table 2 indicates that there is an anticipated forecast underspending that is non-COVID related of £4.8 million. The report then sets out the explanations for these significant non-COVID-19 variances in children's and young people's and adult social care and public health committees. The Council continues to monitor the impacts of COVID-19 upon its finances, especially over the coming months. Work will continue to confirm both the COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 related costs, as well as the appropriate management actions to address these. Paragraph 37 to 41 sets out the current position with contingency and contingency requests. These include the impact of the recently agreed Local Government Services Pay Agreement for 2020-21. Turning to the capital programme, Table 3 on page 9 sets out the expected variance on the capital programme of 7.5 million, together with details of the variations to the capital programme due to COVID-19, which sees some overspends and some slippage on a number of projects, additional DFG grant, additional funding from the Environment Agency, further capital towards the Property Flood Resilience Programme, and additional investment in ICT, both our network and the public libraries network. As usual, this report updates members on Treasury management activities. In addition, this monitoring report also includes performance data for the first quarter for procurement, accounts receivable and accounts payable. As colleagues can see from the report, responding to COVID-19 has had a distorting effect upon the first quarter's performance data, which can be seen in a reduction in income, a slight increase in debt levels due to suspension of enforcement processes, a slight drop in invoices paid on time, and purchasing requirements changing and the impact of various government notices upon procurement. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I'll formally move the recommendations, which are on pages 27 and page 28.
Formally, second, Chairman.
Thank you, John. And I'll open it up for any questions or comments on the report. Mike.
Thanks, Chairman. And thanks again, Nigel, for reporting this. Obviously, we recognise the spiral of the report and the superb efforts of the officers, which continues during this time, and which we recognise it in the papers today. However, Richard, as you laid the holy grail of NCC finances at the feet of a unitary authority, and the fantasy of the golden fleece in surplus finance during your video performance, could you please clarify why you would offer the suggestion of a unitarisation as a solution for this authority's dire financial circumstances, when, as well you know, financial restrictions have been brought about by more than a decade of government underfunding, especially when it can be in no doubt that the realisation of any suggested savings associated with the unitarisation can only be achieved within a minimum of 5 to 7 years after the whole process has been undertaken. I think in answering that, really responds to the recommendations in the financial situation that we are in, please, if you would.
Thank you, Mike. I think we had ample opportunity to debate and discuss possible unitary status for the county on Wednesday. I think it was a 2-hour debate, which was very constructive. I thought there'll be further opportunities to do that in the future. This is a report that deals with the finances as they are today. The 151 officer's got a duty to sign off the accounts as viable as the current structure stands, and so we'll have to bring options forward as we currently are today. My views on the savings that are possible from a new council for the whole of Nottinghamshire are on the record, as many others on this meetings are. But I think today this is a report about our finances. I thank you for recognising the work that officers have done, and I know we've shared these figures widely with opposition groups over the last few months to get to the state that we're at today, and clearly there's some big numbers involved in this, and I thank you for your constructive comments around how we move forward from here. But we have to put a budget together next February, whatever the outcome of any bid for unitary status, and that's what we'll be working towards. Did you want to come back, Mike? I'll let you know.
Just a quick one, Richard, because we are fully aware of the situation now. It's spiralling. But we are in February. We're just around the corner from February, and some sort of clarity on the administration's short and medium-term proposal would be of use for councils and residents throughout Nottinghamshire. Because at the minute we're just not seeing anything, or they're just a further report from the finance officers and Nigel, which will come again, and I'll be asking the same questions again. So a bit of clarity outside of the Unitary Authority would be really good.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mike. Happy to give that. I mean, you can see from the medium-term financial strategy that's within the papers what the total figure we need to find in terms of savings over the next 3 years is, and it's a big number, and we are working towards that. And as soon as we're putting together that budget, we'll share that as widely as possible, because quite honestly, we'll need your support in that as well, and any further options that we're developing. But we'll share that in due course. But I can assure you that work's going on to make sure that we've got a valid budget for next year. Alan, you've indicated.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for your response. They are indeed big numbers, as you correctly say. I just want to support Mike's concerns, really, because we were given the impression, particularly from your video presentation that we were all delighted to receive recently, that the unitary status was going to be the goose that laid the golden egg. Well, it seems to me that it looks increasingly like the goose has been cooked, and the golden egg's not going to get laid. And the question that raises is, so what is Plan B? I'm sure that you will have had a Plan B. I hope you will eventually tell us what Plan B is, because if you were going to sorry to use the egg analogy again, if you're going to put all your eggs in one basket of unitary status, frankly, it was pretty short-sighted and pretty reckless, I have to say, as well. I'm not at all sure that it was ever going to give you the savings that you were predicting. And if there were going to be any savings, they wouldn't be in the short term anyway. We're still several years away from realising those savings. So, you know, I think there are legitimate concerns to raise. I'm sure you'd just like to talk about the report and nothing else, and I'm quite happy to do that if that's what you want to do. But I think there's an elephant in the room at the moment, and it's unitary status and the so-called savings that was going to bring this council that now don't look like being realised. And I think that puts this authority in not severe financial circumstances, but certainly serious financial circumstances. I mean, compared with some of our neighbours, I guess it's not the same sort of problem, but it's still serious. And I think there needs to be a plan to take us forward. And I'm sure at some point that will be shared with the rest of the authority.
Thank you, Alan. It will, and I mean, you can rest assured the 151 officer would not allow us to have all our eggs in one basket. None of us know what the outcome of any possible bid for unitary status is going to be. Whether this is 1, 2, 3 unitaries, whether it's no change whatsoever, it's a matter in the end for the Secretary of State, and we will have a valid budget in place for February, come what may, because it's a legal responsibility. So we certainly will do, and there's a lot of work going on at the moment to find the savings that we need to for next February, and we'll bring opposition members in on that as soon as it's possible to do that. I've got Tom Hollis next. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't intend to go on too long, other than to say I support what Councillor Pringle and Councillor Rhodes said. Obviously, it's very clear in this report that the council is facing some real tight finances. I won't try and emulate Councillor Rhodes' analogy of the goose and the egg, although I loved where he was going with it as an analogy lover myself. But
scrambled now, that one.
Yeah, scrambled. Yeah, I don't taking the punchlines out here from my jokes, but no, I share their concerns. It's clear that this council's put a lot of faith or hope in the fact that we might get this unitary status, which Councillor Jackson tries and pretends that he's got any hope. I think the Secretary of State's quite clearly said to Kay and him that they need to steadily walk down this hill that she's marched them up, and it's no longer going to happen. North Yorkshire looks like to me the only one that potentially might happen in the country, and certainly Nottinghamshire's not going to happen now. But I think the reality is what happens to this council's finances, because when the Ashfield Independents are running the budget after the May's election, then we want to know that you've not absolutely scuppered us before we get there. And I think the truth behind the matter is, and this is where the Labour group are dead right, they're in a sorry state, the finances. You can spend 350 grand painting Trent Bridge, but then not find any money for the roads in Ashfield and Mansfield. We can find how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands for a unitary status application, but we can't find £28,000 for a short start centre in Uthwaite. And I think these are the kind of questions that are coming out. And although it pains me to say it, they are clearly the tip of the iceberg with some of the tough choices this council is now going to face because it's put all its eggs in one basket. A Conservative-run pension fund at Nottinghamshire County Council privately invests in properties all across the country. Ashfield District Council invests in private properties across the country. Nottinghamshire County Council doesn't have a single penny invested in investment properties. These are the kind of things that we should be doing. And although not exactly relevant to this agenda item here, I think it's very clear that every kind of financial statement coming out of this council now is going to be worrying unless we start taking some decisive steps that isn't simply saying we want unitary, why can't we have it? Well, welcome to the real world. You've not got what you wanted. Now, what is plan B? I think Alan and Mike probably credit the fact that we have got a plan B. I don't believe we have, but I truly hope I'm wrong. And the fact that we are going to start, although we might not agree on the choices you make, I really hope you've got some choices or things up your sleeve that are going to make sure this council's finances don't crumble. But looking at this, it's extremely worrying. And without the government's COVID funding, I have to say I think this council will be struggling now. But that's all I have to say. But I welcome the fact, Councillor Jackson, that you say that you're going to involve opposition parties. And as honestly as I can say, we welcome that in the Ashfield Independents, and we genuinely want to work with you, because whether it is you, whether it is Labour, whether it's us, whoever's going to be running the council after the election, we all want the same thing, and we all want to be delivering services. So any help we can be in looking over things, you can count on our support as genuinely as possible there. But thank you.
Thank you, Tom. You even put a smile on Alan's face when you suggested the Ashford Independents will be running the council after May. Maybe we need to get that crystal ball of yours adjusted. But look, we do obviously have plans in place. You'll see those as soon as it's possible to bring those forwards, and we'll need to consult on them as well. But we will have a budget for February. I'd remind members that up until this crisis hit, we had a balanced budget for next financial year for the first time in a long time. And clearly, like every authority in the country and almost every business in the country, the COVID crisis has blown that off course. But there's a lot of work going on. But it's thanks to the work that's been done over many years, and I include Alan's administration in that's put the finances on a sound footing, that meant that we were starting from the best possible position before this crisis in having a balanced budget for next financial year. So they are big numbers. There are councils elsewhere with a far bigger financial challenge facing them, and I'm pretty sure we'll see some councils issuing notices about very serious issues in the near future. We're not one of those because of the work that's gone on over many years, and I thank officers for that. I don't see anybody else. Mike, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand, or are you?
No, it's not a legacy hand.
Okay, I'll let you come back.
Thanks, Richard. And to say, we all recognise the situation that we find ourselves in, and the effort of the 151 officer and his team. We all recognise that. But it was you that made a video about the Unitary Authority. It was you that were pushing the Lloyd's report and how good Unitary Authorities. If this is off the table now, you need to be positive and tell us what your options are, Richard. Now, not in January before the budget comes out. We need to be knowing now, because this COVID isn't going away. So if you can promote Unitary Authority now, then I would really like to see you promoting an option which is outside of that, so we can discuss it further. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mike. I don't think anyone's saying unitary authority is off the table. That seems to be your opinion and that of Tom. That's not the messages we're getting from central government, and we're still being encouraged to put a case forward, and we'll see where that gets to. It's outside of all of our control. I think there's a compelling case. I think there's a compelling financial case as well. But at the end of the day, it's not our decision. And as I've said several times, we will have a properly legal budget come February. If there's nobody else, then I've already moved and it's been seconded. Can I see everybody in favour of the recommendations in the report, please? Do we need to do this as a named vote?
It's up to you, Chair. It's up to you, Chair.
Yeah, do you want to do that then, Pete?
Yeah.
We'll just do this
Thank
formally as a named vote. It's just for clarity.
So I'll read out members' names in alphabetical order. If you can let me know if you're for, against or abstain. Thank you. Councillor Clark.
You were muted, John.
Apologies for.
Thank you. Councillor Girling.
For.
Councillor Hollis.
Against.
Councillor Richard Jackson.
For.
Councillor Roger Jackson.
For.
Councillor Kerry.
For.
Councillor Meal.
For.
Councillor Ogle.
For.
Councillor Pringle.
For.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, thank you. So that's carried. And we'll move on then to item 5, which is personal protective clothing, PPE procurement in response to COVID-19. I'm going to bring Kaj in a moment. I think we should all recognise the absolutely enormous amount of work that's gone into procuring, as you can see in the report, well over 1 million items of PPE. Anyone that visited County Hall in those sort of early months of this crisis will have seen downstairs in the lobby absolutely chock full of PPE equipment, and we should recognise the work that went into doing that. So, Kaj, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chair. So just want to update members. So this report provides members with an update on the provision of PPE in response to COVID, as well as outline the plans for the procurement of PPE supplies as we move into a more sustainable operating model over the coming months. So the Council, as you said, has been providing PPE to health and social care settings since March 2020. We've fulfilled over 1,500 requests of PPE to date and distributed over 1 million items. And that has included receiving and distributing government push stocks. We've led this work by heading up the LRF logistics cell and ensured all PPE was successfully sourced from a range of suppliers very quickly, and therefore then distributed to all our partners, including our health partners. The supply has significantly improved now, and we've been working with our central government department to ensure the needs of our providers and internal services are continued to be met as we head into winter. As we move forward, we're looking to work with the City Council, our CCG and hospital partners, as well as Leicester and Leicestershire councils, to look at putting in place a compliant dynamic purchasing system for PPE. I'd also like to note that throughout our responsive efforts, we've had very strong quality assurance processes in place for all our PPE supplies. All stock, whether that's been received from central government or procured, has been through thorough health and safety checks, and this will be central to any new contractual arrangements we enter into. So thank you, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move the recommendations, but before I do that, I just ask you to pass on the thanks to the team that's been responsible for this work, because I can well imagine the pressure that they were all under and probably still are. So I'll formally move the recommendations, which are on page 35.
Formally second, Chair.
And I'll ask anyone for questions or comments. I've got Mike first of all, and then Diana.
Thanks, Chairman. And Kaj, just to say again from the Labour Group, please pass on our support and thanks for the effort. You know, we can't imagine the stress that you guys were under, so you've done an incredible job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Diana.
Thank you, Richard. I just had a question about what looks like is going to be a second wave and what the impact that you envisage that might be on supplies of PPE. Are we sort of reasonably confident we've now got those supply lines in place?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we were sort of March, April, and very in that sort of responsive and almost hand-to-mouth sort of situation, we're not in that place anymore. We have got comfortable levels of stock, and I'm not just saying that from a Nottinghamshire Council perspective, but across the LRF. We've been doing a lot of work to share data around what our supply chains and supply levels are like. We've all come to an agreement that we will maintain at least 4 weeks worth of stock across all our PPE items. And as those levels start to reduce, we top those up either through central government providing us with PPE, or we're sourcing them ourselves and hence obviously putting in a compliant procurement in place. That ongoing supply, central government does have a good supply of PPE, and that's coming through now regularly. And any items we're finding being pinch points in the supply chain, we're ensuring we're on top of that straight away. So gloves, for example, lots of other sectors are looking to buy gloves, like retail, hospitality, etc. So we're ensuring we've got a good buffer of those items to ensure we can supply our health and social care settings.
Thank you, Kaj. Are you happy with that, Diane? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alan.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I just want to echo Mike's comments, Kaj, and thank you for the work that yourself and the department's done under extremely difficult circumstances. Just a question, really. I know that some organisations, some authorities have received PPE that's not fit for purpose and isn't of a suitable standard to be used. Have we sourced any PPE that's not fit for purpose? And if so, what was the value of that particular purchase?
No, we've got processes in place that before we procure anything, we've made sure we've seen all the appropriate certification. Our health and safety teams have been involved in that process throughout and from the front end. At times, we've also had to get our trading standards teams involved. So if we've had suppliers saying, well, actually, this is fine, we've gone back and said, no, it's not. The government guidance is this is the requirement we need. There've been a couple of situations where we've received stock from central government and then that has had to be recalled, often because it's a batch that's not appropriate when it's come through production. We've acted on that swiftly. Recall notices have gone out. Those items have been brought back in, quarantined, and either have been returned back into central government or disposed of as advised. But as I said, we've got a really good risk and recall process in place, and that's applied across ILRF. So it's not just Nottinghamshire, but all our health partners, hospitals, everyone's doing exactly the same. So we're really assured that the stock is that's going out is the right quality.
Good, that's good news. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Mike.
Yeah, just a point of clarity, Chairman. Kaj, are we now becoming a stockist for retail for the PPE to move outside of it? And if so, how does that affect our finances? Are we sharing or moving stuff on at the same cost to us, or covering our costs, if that's what we're actually doing?
No, so all the PPE that we have sourced or receiving from central government, we are distributing free because that's what we've got from central government, and we are doing that. Schools are directed to Hearts Full Stop as the first point of call, but if or suppliers, but where they aren't able to source anything and they have emergencies, then we will provide that PP as well as part of our process into supporting our children. So we're not making any money out of this. We have sourced that PPE and we are distributing it to our health and social care settings. In some cases, central government have provided us with specific PPE for specific sectors, and we've distributed that as well out to those.
Okay, thank you. Happy, Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say, I think that recognition for that service as well then needs to be recognised and advertised, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all. I don't see anybody else indicating, so if not, I'll ask Pete to go through a vote again, please. Pete.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll just read everyone's names in alphabetical order. So, and if you could tell me for, against or abstain, thank you. Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Girling.
For.
Councillor Hollis. Councillor Hollis, I think you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry, for.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Jackson.
For.
Councillor Roger Jackson.
For.
Councillor Kerry.
For.
Councillor Meal.
For.
Councillor Ogle.
For.
Councillor Pringle,
4.
Councillor Rhodes,
4.
Councillor Wheeler.
4.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on then to agenda item 6, which is Inspire Culture, Learning and Libraries contract. I think we've got Derek to introduce this one. Have we got Derek on the call? Do we know?
Yes, we have. Apologies, members. I'm struggling with connectivity this afternoon, so I'll keep my camera off, but I'm happy to introduce the report, which proposes a contract extension for Inspire, the charitable venture that manages the County Council's libraries, arts and adult education services for a 5-year period up to 2026. The report outlines the really good performance of Inspire in the years since its establishment, and hence provides a rationale for that contract extension. More than happy to take any questions that members may have.
Okay, thank you, Derek. I'll move the recommendation on page 35.
Second, Chairman.
Thank you, John. And I've got Councillor Hollis. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. It's only a technical question, really. I was wondering to Derek and yourself, why 5 years? Why it seems like an unusual timescale. Why not 4 to make it coterminous with the term limit of the council? And why not longer? Because I presume we're quite happy with the work that Inspire are doing and the longevity of what they want to achieve. Surely a longer contract, like we do with our waste contracts, anything that we look to commit to for a long time, it tends to be a lot longer than 5 years. And I was just wondering what the rationale was really behind that figure.
Okay, thank you. I'll let Derek come in with the rationale there.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. So the original contract includes, in effect, an allowance for a 10-year term of contract, which was what was negotiated with Inspire back in 2015-16. So at the time, that was an arrangement that suited both the County Council and Inspire as a new organisation. This decision in front of committee today really is a means of ratifying what was in the original contract. The original contract was set up as a 5+5, if you like, and so that's the kind of rationale for extending it now by a further 5 years. From an Inspire perspective, I know that Inspire colleagues and their board are more than happy with that as a proposed arrangement.
Okay, thank you, Derek. That you happy with that, Tom? Okay. I've got Mike Pringle next then. Mike.
Thanks, Chairman. Derek, just to pass on our gratitude to Inspire. I think it's been an incredible achievement. The effort and the increase in the figures and attendance from public volunteers is superb, and it should be recognised. And so please pass on our thanks to Peter in particular, and I am looking forward to the Inspire Awards, which I'm sure we've all got tickets for, to listen to Sir Cotty speaking. Again, Derek, just to say thank you. 5 years will fly past, and I'm sure we'll be looking at extending it once again on these terms.
Thank you, I will do.
Thank you, Mike. Keith, are you next? Keith Girling.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just on sort of looking at other options. I see there's only really 2 options looked at: either continuing with the contract or bringing them back in house. Why didn't we look at maybe collaboration with the boroughs and districts to see if there was some way in which we could incorporate some sort of partnership with them?
Derek.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for that. So we certainly undertake through Inspire a range of collaboration and initiatives with all of our district and borough councils on a library by library basis. That's more operational than strategic partnerships, but our libraries have a range of successful partnership activity underway with all of our district and borough partners.
Thank you, Derek.
Can I just come back in there,
yeah,
please? Because that's not really what I meant. I know we do partnership working within the libraries in certain projects and everything, but this is talking about a £9 million contract to the council, where you know, we've talked about the finances of the council, and to me, there's an obvious opportunity there to maybe reduce what it costs his council to produce the service. And I just wondered why we didn't talk to the districts and boroughs in terms of maybe that as well.
I think it was a question of them doing it instead of Inspire. There would be a problem. Inspire has attracted external funding, and it's saved an awful lot of money because of its charitable status. And I think that's something which Alan's nodding, but he wants to speak in a moment. But I think that's a good part of the reason why it was set up like this previously by that last administration, because it was able to take advantage of an awful lot of external funding, which just wasn't available to a public sector partner. Derek, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, the only thing I'd add is of course, that the county councils are the local or upper tier authorities of the councils that have this kind of statutory responsibility, such as it is for the operation of libraries and adult education services. And of course, with the establishment of Inspire, what that did in 2016 was respect the expertise and reflect the expertise that existed within the county council at the time, and transferred that to a slightly different operating model. I think other local authorities that don't have that track record of managing and delivering front-facing library services, I suspect that would be challenging for them, to say the least.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Derek.
Just one more thing. Sorry, because it's just for clarification, really. I wasn't talking about the districts taking them on and instead of Inspire. Sorry. There's other ways that can be done where you still have the benefits of Inspire, but Inspire have more partners than they have at the moment. Yeah, because they are technically an independent body, so you would not lose the expertise of them, but you've also then got because the districts will know the benefit of their individual libraries within their districts and boroughs. You know, it's not just a resource for the county council; it's a resource for the districts and boroughs as well. So I'm just curious as why we didn't look a bit more widespread in terms of something that could be still have what we've got, but maybe actually enhance it. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Alan, you've indicated.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm not going to pick up on the point that Keith's made, because it's clearly we are where we are now, and what happens in future will happen in future. But and I don't want to take us on a trip down memory lane, but actually the whole reason for the creation of Inspire was to save the libraries. We were found to be in a situation where, frankly, we would have had to close libraries had we not found a different way of delivering this. A more cost-effective way of delivering this that will bring savings into the council. And certainly those very important activities that Inspire managers other than libraries, so the Inspire Learning, the music, all of that, it didn't stand a chance had we not done something different. We would almost certainly have had to completely do away with it. And my guess is that we would now be in a situation where we would probably only have one library in each major town in each district. We wouldn't have any of the small libraries. And it's funny, I was, some people know I'm quite active on social media. I was looking at Facebook the other day, and it gives you memories every so many years. And up popped a memory from, I think it was 3 years ago, it might have been 4, probably 3, when we were looking at the refurbishment, we were opening the refurbished Collingham Library. And it was terrific. I remember that day. Sybil Fielding was chair of the council at the time. It was a brilliant day. There'd be no way there'd be a Collingham Library if the council was still running this. And I'm sorry to have to say that as well, because I've always said, now I know John Cotty, Sir Cotty, as Mike just called him, which I thought was quite funny. John Cotty agrees with me. Libraries are really important in our communities, and as Derek knows, because he phoned me while I was there, quite by accident at the back end of last week, I was in Retford Library looking at the new refurbishment there. It is absolutely fantastic. Really, it's transformed that old library building. And it was an old library building, and it had an old library building feel to it. It is now, like many of our libraries, it's modern, it's light, it's bright, it's family friendly. It's just a fantastic testament to this council and what libraries can look like with a little bit of inspiration. So I think Inspire do a fantastic job under Peter Gore's leadership. I think Peter is, well, I know from talking to Peter, he's absolutely committed and passionate about libraries. I think that Inspire has been one of the great success stories of this council in recent years. I'm not just saying that because we created it. We did, but it doesn't matter. I would say it if it was created under a Conservative administration. It is one of this council's great success stories, and something that I know other authorities in other parts of the country are interested in looking at and replicating, and in some cases have replicated. So I'm very happy to support the report. Sorry to be a bit long-winded about it, but I did feel it necessary to compliment the council on what's just happened at Retford Library, and certainly talk about where we'd be had we not created Inspire, because we were in a very difficult situation. So I'm happy to support the report, Chair.
Thank you, Alan, and thanks for what you said. It's very helpful. I should say as well, I mean, we talked about COVID in every item so far. Their response to COVID ahead of lockdown was excellent. They extended opening hours, extended the amount of books, almost a sort of open-ended number of books that people could take for an indefinite period, which was fantastic. And I'm sure that helped to get some people through very difficult times. So hats off to them for that as well. So it's been moved and seconded.
Can I just say something else very quickly? I'm being sorry, I know I'm taking a bit of liberty. Can I just say something else? The way that Inspire responded to the disaster that struck Worksop Library when it was flooded last November was absolutely magnificent. I mean, they found some temporary premises in a shopping precinct in Worksop. It is what it is. It's fairly small and constrained, and it's nothing like what I consider to be the best library in the county. But the way that they responded, the way the team worked to find alternative premises and give a service to the community that would have been in any other cases lost. And I mean, the library is still closed, sadly, whilst the work continues to put it right. But I mean, it really is, it's testament to that Inspire team and to Peter's leadership, I think.
It absolutely is, Alan. Thank you for that. I should have said the same myself. So with that, I don't see anybody else indicating. I'll ask Pete again to go through members for a vote.
Thank you, Chair. So if members could let me know if they're for, against or abstain. Councillor Clark?
For.
Councillor Girling?
For.
Councillor Hollis?
For.
Councillor Richard Jackson?
For.
Councillor Roger Jackson?
For.
Councillor Kerry?
For.
Councillor Meal?
For.
Councillor Ogle?
For.
Councillor Pringle?
For.
Councillor Rhodes?
For.
Councillor Wheeler?
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, and we will make sure that those comments are passed back on to through Peter to the Inspire team, and also pass on the fact that that was a unanimous vote, because I think it shows how we value the work that they do for us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So I'll move on to agenda item 7, which is Cultural Services Contract Variation Extensions. I'll remind members that there's a further paper after the exclusion of public and press, and that more than happy to debate this now or after the exclusion, but just to be careful on what you might say, not to divulge anything that's on the green papers until we've excluded the public and press, especially as we may have members of the public watching online. So I'll open this one up. And I think this again is Derek. Derek, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say then that this report covers 2 areas of the Council's cultural services operation, Rufford Park and Home Pierpont Country Park, and seeks further contract variations to respect the continuing financial pressures that we see at both sites as a result of coronavirus, and builds on previous reports that have been considered by members earlier in the year, which approved an initial contract variation. This report seeks to extend that contract variation period for both sites up until the end of the calendar year, and reflect the changing financial circumstances that are in place at both sites. For Rufford, you'll see from the detail in the report that the site has actually performed better than anticipated, whereas the converse is true at the Home Pier Country Park, which faces, because of its very different operating model, a range of much more significant challenges. But happy to take any questions that members may have.
Okay, thank you, Derek. So, I mean, for me, these are two sites that have been well used by people throughout the COVID crisis, but they haven't been able to trade as they would normally have done. So they've had the management costs and the running costs of the sites, which are considerable, as we know from when the council used to run both of them in-house. They haven't had the flip side of that through much of the time, at least, and been able to make an income from that. So this is, we think, a fair recompense for that, and it recognises that we certainly don't want the alternative of these sites being closed to the public who value them so much over the last few months. I'll move the recommendations.
Second, Chairman.
Thank you, John. I don't see anybody indicating. Does anybody wish to speak at this point, or perhaps after we've excluded the public and press? In that case, Pete, do we need to take a vote on this stage, or is it after exclusion?
No, we need to take a vote on this report.
Okay.
And then we need to take a vote on whether we expel the public.
Fine. Okay. So if everybody's happy with that, then the recommendations on page 43 are what we're voting on at this stage. And I'll ask Pete to go through members again.
Sorry, Richard, just before we go.
Yes.
I'm a bit unsure how we can vote on it without having, obviously, the honest discussion about it all, or am I missing something? Because we're voting to extend the contract, aren't we, effectively?
I'm happy to take advice. I wouldn't have a problem with deferring this vote and taking it as part of agenda item 10, unless someone tells me there's a reason we can't do that.
No, we can move the voting and the discussion into the exempt part of the meeting, Chair.
Fine. Okay, Tom, is that all right? Well, we can then discuss it after the exclusion of public and press.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, we just need to vote for exclusion. Yeah.
So absolutely. So I'll move item 9, which is the exclusion of the public and press. Committee is invited to resolve that the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting, on the grounds that the discussions are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information described in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So I'll move that formally.
Formally second that, Chairman.
Thank you, John. Eric, I've got you indicating. Is
yeah,
that
just before we take that, just before we take that vote, I mean, we can do the work programme now and move on to the excluded item later. Is that not a...
Well, let me slightly amend it then. Yeah, you're quite right. I'll slightly amend it to say that after the work programme, we'll exclude the public and press. That's all right.
I apologise. I apologise. I missed the work programme item.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Eric. You're keeping us on the straight and narrow there. So I'll move that as a recommendation then. Which, John, I think is
second.
So
second that.
I think we can do this by exclusion. Yeah. So unless anybody tells me otherwise, I'll take that as being a positive vote for exclusion after item 8, which I'll now move as the work programme. And
I have to second that, Chairman.
Now, Eric, you were so keen that we discussed the work programme, so you've obviously got lots to say about it. So far away. Are there any comments on the work programme? Okay, thank you. So we'll take that again by exclusion as being carried. And we now come on then. Do I need to pause while we stop the...
Yep, could we just pause end the live stream, please, colleagues?